I never thought I'd be here, but life has a way of throwing you into places you never expected. This is a story I never wanted to tell, but maybe it'll help someone avoid the same mistakes. Heather and I were married for 12 years. We had what I thought was a good life, stable, predictable, even happy at times. Of course, no relationship is perfect, and I'd be lying if I said we didn't have our rough patches. But I never imagined what was coming that night. I got home earlier than expected. I'd planned to surprise Heather, bring her favorite dessert, and maybe even have a quiet evening together. She'd been distant lately, and I wanted to make an effort. But as I stepped inside, I noticed something was off. The lights were dim, and a quiet murmur of voices came from the living room. At first, I thought she had company, maybe a friend over. But as I walked in, the scene that unfolded in front of me stopped me cold. Heather was sitting way too close to a man I didn't recognize. He was well-dressed, confident, and had the kind of presence that commanded attention. She laughed at something he said, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard in a long time. But it wasn't just that. It was the way she leaned in, the way his hand rested on the couch next to hers. They hadn't noticed me yet. I cleared my throat, and when Heather turned and saw me, her face drained of color. She stammered, pushing away from him like she just realized what was happening. The man didn't flinch. Instead, he looked at me with a calm, almost amused expression, as if he had nothing to be ashamed of. I didn't yell. I didn't cause a scene. I just stood there, staring at my wife, the woman I thought I knew, realizing in that moment that the life I had built was gone. "I can explain," she started, her voice shaking, but I wasn't interested in explanation. I turned around and walked out the door. Heather followed me outside, grabbing my arm. "Mike, please, let's talk. It's not what it looks like." I pulled away. "It's exactly what it looks like." She started crying, saying she had been confused, that it was just one mistake, that she loved me. But in that moment, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. I didn't go back inside. I didn't argue. I just left. That was the night my marriage ended, but as I would soon find out, it wasn't the end of the story. Leaving that night felt surreal. One moment I was a husband planning a quiet evening, and the next I was a man walking away from the life I had built. I checked into a hotel and turned my phone off. I knew Heather would keep calling, trying to explain, but I didn't want to hear it. There was nothing she could say that would undo what I saw. The next morning, I forced myself to go to work like nothing had happened. I went through the motions, answering emails, sitting through meetings, but my mind was elsewhere. My coworkers noticed I was off, but no one pried. I was grateful for that. By the evening, I decided to check my phone. 53 missed calls. Heather had left voicemail after voicemail, alternating between apologizing, crying, and insisting. It was all a misunderstanding. Then there was a message from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated before playing it. "Mike," a woman's voice said, "I know you don't know me, but we need to talk. It's about Heather. Please call me back." I frowned. Who is this? What could she possibly have to say about Heather that I didn't already know? Curiosity got the better of me. I called the number she picked up after one ring. "Mike, who is this?" I asked. "My name is Lisa," she said, "Heather's friend. Well, former friend." I didn't say anything, waiting for her to continue. "I was there the night you walked in," she said carefully. "And I know what she told you, but there's something she didn't tell you." I sat up straighter. "I don't care about details," I said flatly. "It doesn't change anything." Lisa hesitated. "I know, but Mike, this wasn't just a one-time mistake." A cold chill ran down my spine. "What do you mean?" Lisa sighed. "I mean Heather and Charles." "Yes, Yes, that's his name. I've been seeing each other for months. My grip tightened on the phone. I thought I had been numb before, but this was something else. She told you it was nothing. Lisa continued, her voice almost gentle. But the truth is, it was never nothing. I didn't know what to say. I'm telling you because I know what kind of person Heather is. Lisa said she'll twist things. She'll try to make you feel guilty, like you overreacted, but you didn't, Mike. You deserve to know the truth. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Why are you telling me this? There was a pause, because I used to be her friend. Lisa admitted, and I saw what she was doing, but I couldn't sit by and watch anymore. You deserved better. I exhaled slowly. Thanks for telling me. Take care of yourself, Mike, she said. Before hanging up, I stared at the phone, my mind racing months. It wasn't just some fleeting mistake. It was deliberate, a choice. And now I had to figure out what to do next. I sat in my hotel room staring at my phone. Long after Lisa hung up, my mind was a storm of emotions. Anger, betrayal, exhaustion. The idea that Heather had been lying for months, living a double life right under my nose, made my stomach churn. I thought about calling her, confronting her with what Lisa had told me. But what would be the point? She'd just deny it, spin another web of half-truths and excuses. Instead, I did something I had done since walking out. I opened my email. Heather had sent me a long message. Subject: Please just listen, Mike. I know you don't want to talk to me, but please, I need you to hear me out. I messed up. I was selfish and stupid, and I hate myself for it. But what you saw, it wasn't what you think. Yes, I spent time with Charles. Yes, I was wrong. But you and I have been distant for so long, and I felt like I was invisible. He made me feel wanted again. It doesn't excuse what I did, but I need you to know I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, Mike, and I don't want to lose you. Please, can we just talk? Just one conversation. That's all I'm asking. Heather. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. She was trying to manipulate me, turning this around, making it about how she felt I'd seen it 100 times before in other people's stories. Cheaters always had an excuse. And now I was living one of those stories. Still, a part of me hesitated. 12 years together, 12 years of memories. Could I really just throw it all away? I closed my laptop. I needed to clear my head. I grabbed my jacket and walked out, letting the cool night air hit my face. The city buzzed around me, cars passing, couples laughing, the distant hum of life continuing as if my world hadn't just collapsed. I didn't know where I was going, but my feet carried me forward until I found myself standing in front of a familiar apartment building. L's. I hesitated before knocking, wondering if this was a mistake. But she had been honest with me, and right now honesty was the only thing I needed. The door opened. After a moment, Lisa looked surprised but not unhappy to see me. Mike, she asked, stepping aside to let me in. I didn't think you'd call. I needed answers, I said, and I think you're the only one who's willing to give them. Lisa nodded, slowly. Come in. I stepped inside, bracing myself for whatever truth she was about to tell me. Lisa's apartment was small but cozy. Soft yellow light illuminated the space, and the faint scent of coffee lingered in the air. She motioned for me to sit while she poured 2 cups. I wasn't sure if I wanted coffee or something stronger, but at this point I'd take whatever steadied my nerves. I took a sip, then set the cup down, looking at her. Tell me everything. Lisa said, crossing her arms. I figured you'd come looking for answers. Heather's good at making things sound less serious than they actually are. I nodded, bracing myself. How long has this been going on? Lisa hesitated, then finally said, Almost a year. A year.
My stomach twisted.
I had prepared myself for a few months, but a year that meant while we were celebrating anniversaries, birthdays, and holidays. Heather had already checked out. She told me it was just emotional. At first, Lisa continued that Charles was someone she could talk to. When she felt like you weren't listening, I let out a bitter laugh. She never said anything was wrong. If she felt like I wasn't listening, why didn't she tell me?
Lisa shucked because that would have meant fixing things, and Charles made her feel important,
Special. The excitement of something new. I shook my head, gripping the edge of the table. How did you find out? Lisa hesitated again, then said, Because I caught them months ago. I saw them together at a restaurant, sitting in a private booth. She looked guilty when she saw me, but Charles, he acted like it was nothing. I clenched my jaw. That sounded exactly like him. Arrogant, untouchable. I confronted her later. Lisa continued, told her she was making a mistake, that she needed to end it. She promised she would, but she didn't. Of course she didn't. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, letting it all sink in. A year of betrayal. Lies stacked on lies, and I had been the fool living in ignorance. Lisa watched me carefully, Mike. I didn't tell you this to hurt you, but you deserve the truth. Heather's not the person you think she is. I exhaled slowly. I think I finally see that we sat in silence for a moment before Lisa spoke again. What are you going to do? I thought about that I had already walked away, already left the house, ignored her calls and refused to give her the chance to manipulate me. But part of me still felt like I needed closure. I don't know, I admitted. Lisa frowned. Be careful. Heather isn't used to losing. If she feels like she's losing control, she might do something drastic. That thought sent a shiver down my spine. Heather had always been the type to get what she wanted, and when she didn't, she found ways to twist things in her favor. I won't fall for whatever she's planning, I said. Lisa gave me a knowing look. Just don't underestimate her. As I left Lisa's apartment that night, I realized something. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating wife. I was dealing with someone who had spent a year lying to my face, someone who had gotten comfortable with deception. And people like that, they didn't just let things go. I didn't go back to my hotel that night. Instead, I drove aimlessly through the city, my mind replaying everything Lisa had told me. A whole year of deception, of Heather pretending to be my wife while living a separate life behind my back. And now she wanted to talk. I wasn't sure what was worse, the betrayal itself or the fact that she thought she could talk her way out of it. By the time I pulled up outside my office parking lot, the sun was beginning to rise. I had barely slept, but I couldn't just sit around waiting for Heather to call me again. I needed to take back control of my life. But as I got out of the car, my phone buzzed a text from an unknown number. Unknown. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th, 1 hour. It's important. I frowned. Who the hell was this? Heather? No, she would have just called Lisa. Unlikely. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity got the best of me. I needed answers, and whoever this was clearly had something to say. 1 hour later, the coffee shop was half empty when I walked in. I scanned in the room looking for anyone who might be waiting for me, and then, at a table in the corner, I saw him. Charles. He sat there like he owned the place, dressed in a tailored suit, sipping an espresso like he hadn't just blown up my life. The audacity of this guy. I almost turned around and left, but then he looked up and smirked. Mike, he said, gesturing to the seat across from him. Glad you came. I sat down, my fists clenched under the table. What do you want? Charles took a slow sip of his coffee as if he had all the time in the world. I figured you might have some questions. I laughed coldly. Questions like how long you've been sleeping with my wife or how you can sit here and act like none of this matters. He shrugged.
Heather made her choices, and so did you.
I narrowed my eyes. What the hell does that mean? Charles leaned forward, setting his cup down. Heather and I are done. She's a mess without you. Crying, spiraling, doesn't know what to do with herself. He smirked. It's pathetic, really. I felt my stomach turn. As much as I hated what she had done, hearing him talk about her like that made my blood boil. What's your point? I asked. Charles tapped his fingers on the table. My point is, she's desperate to get you back, and desperate people do stupid things. I stiffened. What are you saying? He exhaled like he was already bored of the conversation. I'm saying, if I were you, I'd watch my back. Heather's not the type to let go easily. I stared at him, trying to figure out if he was messing with me. But something about the way he said it, so casual, so certain, made me uneasy. Charles stood up, straightening his suit jacket. Anyway, I just thought you should know. He tossed a few bills on the table and smirked. Good luck, Mike. And just like that, he walked out. I sat there, my coffee untouched, my mind racing. Heather was spiraling, and Charles, of all people, was warning me something wasn't right. I pulled out my phone and stared at Heather's last email. Maybe I needed to hear her out, not to fix things, but to see what she was planning. Because if Charles was right, this wasn't over. It was just beginning. I sat in that coffee shop long after Charles left, staring at my untouched drink. Heather was spiraling. I wasn't sure if I believed him, but the way he said it, the certainty in his voice unsettled me. For the past week, I had been ignoring Heather's calls, her emails, her attempts to reach out. Maybe I had assumed she would eventually move on, except that our marriage was over. But what if Charles was right? What if she wasn't moving on? The thought made my stomach tighten. I pulled out my phone and, for the first time since walking out that night, I dialed her number. It barely rang before she picked up. Mike. Her voice was raw, desperate. Oh my God, I thought. I thought you were never going to call me back. I exhaled already, regretting this. We need to talk in person. Yes, she said quickly. Please just tell me when, tonight. I said the park near our old place, neutral ground. I'll be there. She promised. I hung up before she could say anything else. Later that night, the park was quiet, the sun just beginning to set. I stood near a bench, hands in my pockets, trying to prepare myself. Heather arrived a few minutes later. The moment she saw me, she rushed over, eyes already brimming with tears. She looked different, frazzled, anxious, like she hadn't slept in days. Mike, she breathed, reaching for my arm. I took a step back. Talk, I said, my voice firm. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I need you to understand I never wanted this. I never meant to destroy us. I stayed silent, letting her talk. She took a shaky breath. At first it was harmless. Charles was just a distraction, someone who made me feel alive when everything between us felt dull. But I swear, Mike, I never stopped loving you. I clenched my jaw. That's not love, Heather. Tears filled down her cheeks. I know she whispered, but after you left, I lost everything. Charles dropped me like I was nothing, and now I don't know what to do. I studied her, trying to figure out if this was just another manipulation, but there was something different. This time, she looked genuinely lost, Mike. She said, her voice barely above a whisper, I don't know how to be without you. I exhaled slowly. You should have thought about that before you betrayed me. She let out a soft sob. I'm so sorry. I shook my head. I didn't come here for an apology. I came to ask you one thing. Are you going to accept that this is over? Heather stared at me, her eyes wide, pleading. And then, just as I thought she would break down again, something in her expression changed, a flicker of something else. Her lips trembled, but instead of nodding, she whispered, Are you sure? I stiffened. What do you mean? Heather wiped her tears and took a slow breath. Because if you walk away, Mike, I don't think you'll like what happens next. A chill ran down my spine. Was that a threat? I took a step back, suddenly feeling like I was standing in front of a stranger. I just needed to know. She murmured, I'll see you around, Mike. And with that, she turned and walked away. I stood frozen, watching her disappear into the night. Something told me this wasn't over, not even close. I left the park feeling more unsettled than I had in days. Heather's words weren't just the desperate pleas of someone who wanted to fix her mistakes. There was something else in her voice, something cold. She had accepted that I was walking away, but it felt like she had already planned for it. I tried to shake off the feeling. As I drove back to my apartment, I told myself I was overthinking it, that she was just hurt and saying things out of emotion, but the gnawing in my gut wouldn't go away. When I got home, I found a new email waiting in my inbox from Heather. I hesitated before opening it. Mike, I meant what I said. If you don't want to be with me, I'll respect that. But before you close the door forever, I want you to know something. I wasn't the only one keeping secrets. There's something you don't know about Charles, something big, and it affects you more than you realize. I have proof. If you want to know the truth, meet me tomorrow night. If not, well, I guess you'll find out eventually, Heather. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. What the hell was this? At first I thought it was another manipulation, another desperate attempt to drag me back into her orbit. But something about her tone was different. She wasn't begging this time. She wasn't pleading. She was warning me. I considered ignoring it, deleting the email, and finally putting this nightmare behind me. But the problem was I couldn't. Because what if she was telling the truth? The next night I agreed to meet Heather at a quiet cafe outside of town. It was a place we used to go when we first started dating. Long before things went bad, I arrived a few minutes early, scanning the place. As I walked in, it was nearly empty. Heather sat at a corner table, a small envelope in front of her. She looked calm, collected, the complete opposite of the emotional wreck I had seen at the park. I took a seat across from her. I don't have time for games, Heather. If you have something to say, say it. She slid the envelope toward me. Open it. I hesitated, then picked it up and pulled out a small stack of photos. And the moment I saw them, my breath caught in my throat. It was Charles, but not just Charles. It was Charles and my boss talking, meeting, shaking hands. And in one of the photos I saw something that made my stomach drop. A contract with my company's logo on it. I looked up at Heather, my hands tightening around the photos. What is this? She leaned forward, her eyes locked onto mine. Charles wasn't just some rich guy, Mike. He's been involved with your company for months, and he's been using you without you even knowing it. My mind was spinning. That doesn't make any sense, Heather. Sighed. Think about it. Why do you think he got so close to me? Why do you think he never cared? If you found out he wasn't just trying to take your wife, Mike, he was trying to take your job. A cold chill ran down my spine. No, that couldn't be right. But then I thought back to everything. The way Charles had always acted so smug, like he knew something I didn't. The way my boss had been acting distant lately. The deals I had been left out of, and suddenly, It all clicked. Heather wasn't lying. Charles had been playing me this entire time. I clenched my jaw. Why are you telling me this now? Heather's expression softened because no matter what happened between us, I don't want to see him ruin you. You don't deserve that. For the first time since this all started, I believed her. I exhaled, looking back down at the photos. This wasn't about my marriage anymore. This was about everything, and I wasn't going to let Charles win. I sat in that cafe staring at the photos. Heather had just handed me Charles and my boss together, smiling, signing contracts. It was like a slap in the face. The affair had been bad enough, but this was something else entirely. This was personal. I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. How did you even get these? I asked. Looking up at Heather, she hesitated, then said, I wasn't completely blind. When I was with him, I started noticing things Cy wouldn't take in front of me. Meetings that didn't make sense. One night he left his laptop open. I took a look. I raised an eyebrow. You went through his files? Heather sighed. I know I don't have much credibility right now, but yes, I did. And I found out he's been meeting with your boss for months. I didn't understand what I was looking at first, but when you left, I started putting the pieces together. I clenched my jaw, flipping through the photos again. Why would Charles care about my company? He's a millionaire. He has everything. Heather shook her head. Not everything. He wanted power, control. He wanted your position. A realization hit me like a freight train. He hadn't just been sleeping with my wife. He had been working with my boss to push me out, and I had walked right into it. I exhaled slowly. So what now? Heather hesitated, then slid a USB drive across the table. This has copies of everything I found. Emails, contracts, messages. If you want to stop him, this is your chance. I stared at the tiny drive. This one thing could take Charles down, could expose him, could end him. I looked back at Heather. Why are you helping me? Her eyes glistened. Because I was stupid, Mike. I made the worst mistake of my life. And even though I don't deserve it, I want to make things right for the first time. I actually believed her. I pocketed the USB and stood up. I need to go. Heather nodded, wiping a tear from her cheek. I understand. I turned to leave, then paused. I glanced back at her one last time. I won't forgive you for what you did, I said honestly, but I appreciate this. She gave me a weak smile. That's more than I deserve. I left the cafe without looking back. The next day I walked into my office, the USB drive in my pocket, my heart pounding. I went straight to HR, then to legal within an hour. My boss was being questioned by the afternoon. Charles's name was everywhere, turns out. He had been illegally funneling money through the company. He wasn't just trying to take my position. He was trying to cover up financial fraud. By the next morning, Charles's entire empire started crumbling. His friends abandoned him. Investors pulled out the deals he had spent years building, collapsed overnight. And me, I got offered my boss's position. Turns out once people found out what Charles was doing, they realized I was the only one who had been honest all along. 1 month later, Heather reached out a few times. After that, I didn't answer. Not because I hated her, but because that chapter of my life was over. I had a new start, a better job, a clear conscience, and Charles. Well, let's just say I don't think he'll be bothering me again. I may have lost my marriage, but I W everything else.